called The View?
It's called The View. It's not called The Facts.
Yeah, but
It's
isn't it interesting that it's called, I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America.
But
There is
clearly,
one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
That's correct.
Thank you for joining us. Now let's get started. The behavior was disgusting, especially from Anne and Naro, who in their wildest dreams couldn't carry a show on their own. They'll always just be part of a group, never stars, in their own right, and they can't even come close to matching the kind of success Tucker Carlson has achieved. So they can sit in their cheap seats all day, throwing out their little negative comments. But the truth is, their careers are stuck while Tucker is on the rise. It all happened live on television, and this wasn't just a debate, it was a complete takedown. Picture yourself sipping your morning coffee, turning on The View, and watching Sunny Hostin shift from confident and smug to totally overwhelmed in just a few segments. It wasn't just uncomfortable to watch, it was unforgettable.
They're disgusting. She's Anna Navarro. In your wildest imagination, you could never solo host a show. You will only ever make it as part of an ensemble, and you could never hope to achieve the success that Tucker Carlson has. So you can sit in your little cheap seats all day long and enjoy your little negative henpecking, but your careers are going nowhere, and Tucker is about to dominate.
Bill Maher and Megyn Kelly didn't just question her, they teamed up for a verbal takedown so sharp you could almost hear the studio cracking under the pressure. Here's the truth, The View has never really been about facts. It's always been a platform for strong opinions. But what happens when those opinions finally run into people who aren't afraid to hit back with reality? That's exactly what went down. Sunny Hostin, who's known for turning every conversation into a courtroom drama where she plays the judge, jury, and moral authority, walked straight into a verbal trap, and she wasn't even close to prepared.
Because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before.
Sure.
So everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no fucking thing as karma, okay? Get over that. Whoopi attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid shit on a regular basis. It just happened to coincide. But
Bill Maher's sarcasm was razor sharp and Megyn Kelly's delivery was ice cold. Together, they tore Sunny's entire argument apart, one piece at a time. One moment, she was calmly sipping her tea, acting like everything was under control, and the next, she was scrambling, clinging to her note cards like they were the only thing keeping her grounded. By the way, before we move on, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and bring you even more gripping stories. Now, let's get back to it because this showdown is just getting started.
That hot mess that they air in the mornings, called The View, had to issue not one, not two, not three, but 4 corrections, legal corrections, 4 legal notes. Not to mention what they did at that debate, where once again, they tried to fact check only one side, and then when their fact checks got fact checked, they cowered. They cowered in fear. I mean, this is a pattern with them.
Let's talk about what really made this moment blow up, because this wasn't just a disagreement, it was a clash of styles, and Sunny Hostin wasn't built to handle this kind of pressure. She walked into the conversation with her usual air of confidence, not realizing she was stepping into a trap set by 2 people who don't follow The View's usual script. Bill Maher doesn't need to raise his voice, his dry wit and sarcasm cut so deep they still sting hours later. Megyn Kelly doesn't rely on drama. She calmly presents facts with exact precision. In that kind of setting, Sunny's over-rehearsed outrage and moral speeches fell apart like stale cookies. You could feel the energy shift, the awkward pauses, the silence between comments, and the confident smirk on her face slowly disappearing with every blow. Smarter.
Any term you want. Because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't know, want to call it the super far left, but don't tell me the left had...
Maybe the super far right. Well, he's talking about the left. Well, then
okay, but we talked about that. I mean, I think we agree about the danger of the super far right, and I can't say it enough. I think they're the bigger threat. But don't tell me that the left hasn't changed. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when it was the conservatives who hated the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sunny, who's so used to taking over conversations with long monologues and her lawyer confidence, suddenly looked like she was playing chess against a grandmaster while she brought a coloring book. Every time she tried to guide the discussion with emotion and moral high ground, they calmly answered with logic and facts. And it worked. Sunny's usual strategy, talk louder, talk longer, and hope no one challenges you, was falling apart right before our eyes. The louder she got, the more out of place she sounded, and watching it all happen live was something else.
And finally, new rule, stop saying that Whoopi Goldberg getting yanked from The View right after she attacked me on The View is karma. There's no such thing as karma, sorry. Sorry, but life is random. The only word to describe it when a big game hunter gets trampled by an elephant and then eaten by lions is hilarious.
Without losing the sting or style, it was like watching someone try to argue with gravity. And here's where it really started to hurt. Sunny's biggest weapon, her law degree, turned into her biggest weakness. She never misses a chance to remind people she's a former federal prosecutor. It's practically written on her forehead by now, but instead of using that background to offer real insight, she turns every discussion into a smug, self-centered lecture. She tosses around legal terms like confetti, but none of them stick. It feels like she's more focused on sounding smart than actually being smart. In this episode, she opened her mouth expecting applause, but what came out felt more like a clumsy TED Talk. No research, just pure ego. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more embarrassing, the show had to issue 4 legal corrections. After the broadcast, not 1, not 2, 4. That's not a mistake. That's a full-blown meltdown.
They had a discussion on The View about world superpowers from the sound of it. That's how they got into it. And Sunny Hostin made some comments about patriotism and America and Black America. It's all in there, Jason. I mean, it's all in there. I'm going to tee it up. It starts with Alyssa Farah, who's supposed to be the Republican commentator, and then you'll hear Sunny jump in. Listen.
If America is not the #1 global power, it's not going to be Denmark. It's going to be communist China, a country that right now the government is imprisoning Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps. It is a deeply racist government. It's a human rights violating government. It is a government that if they are the leader of the free world, we are not a free world the way that we are right now.
The notion of patriotism and the notion of America and the American flag has been co-opted by the right as if they are true patriots. But when I listen to Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, he said white supremacy is the biggest domestic threat to this country.
And it wasn't just legal slip-ups. The fact-checking on The View has always been one-sided, mostly aimed at conservatives, but this time, when their own claims were challenged, they fell apart. The confidence vanished. They were caught fact-checking others, but panicked the moment someone turned the spotlight on them. It was total chaos. That's what happens when your arguments are built on weak foundations. The moment someone shows up with real proof, the whole thing collapses. And Sunny, she was left standing in the wreckage, still waving her law degree like it could somehow save her. But just when you thought she couldn't go any further, she did, dragging every single conversation into social justice territory, whether it made sense or not. We're talking about someone who could turn a chat about weather patterns into a lecture on racial inequality, TikTok trends, oppression.
Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States, yay, on January 20th of this month. Not everyone's happy about it, and many people would like us to be more focused on the insurrection that he personally unleashed, if you ask them. As we discussed earlier, they think it's as bad as, like, the Holocaust, and you don't have to take my word for it. Here is Sunny Hostin of
January
The View
6th was an
today.
atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery.
Yeah, the January 6th is right up there next to the Holocaust and slavery.
It's like every topic becomes a stage for Sunny's moral performance. It didn't matter what the subject was, she always found a way to spin it into a talk about race, privilege, or historical trauma, and not in a way that opens real conversation, but in a way that completely shuts it down. Just over the top, they were exhausting, like listening to someone read Twitter threads out loud with the volume stuck on full outrage. Even Whoopi Goldberg, who usually stands by her co-hosts no matter what, looked like she'd had enough. There were clear signs of discomfort, awkward silences, and points where even Whoopi had to step in just to steer the conversation back on track. When your own team stops backing you up, that's a major red flag. Sunny doesn't debate, she performs. And when that performance is challenged by people who won't play along, like Bill and Megan, she doesn't adapt, she doubles down. Her voice gets louder, the buzzwords pile up, and the logic fades. By that point, the audience wasn't watching a discussion. They were watching a train wreck happen in slow motion.
I want you to note the tone they all talk with him. I want you to look at Sunny Hostin's body language and the way they look at him and everything else. Just because he is a lefty who hasn't gone completely bananas, here they are talking about the word woke.
The term woke has been, in my view, co-opted by the right and weaponized and bastardized. And so I was surprised to hear you use the term because historically, as you know, because I think you're quite brilliant, that woke is a word used by the Black community to note that we must be aware of social injustices.
But words
and
migrate.
So why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, and originally that was absolutely a great thing. Alert to injustice, who's not for that? But words do migrate.
Let's dive into the moment where everything completely fell apart. The segment shifted to a serious global issue, world superpowers, and things escalated quickly. Alyssa Farah, the show's token Republican, brought up the dangers of China rising as the dominant global power. She pointed out horrifying facts: the imprisonment of Uyghur Muslims, human rights violations, and the authoritarian control of the Chinese government. That's when Sunny jumped in. Instead of addressing any of that, she steered the conversation straight into identity politics. She argued that patriotism has been hijacked by the right and somehow tied it to white supremacy. Suddenly, the discussion wasn't about global threats. It was about who gets to wave the American flag and what it stands for. And then came the jaw dropper. Sunny compared the January 6th Capitol riot to some of the darkest moments in history: the Holocaust, child slavery, World War II. Yes, she really said that live on TV in front of millions. That wasn't just a bad opinion, it was a historically ignorant slap in the face to real victims of atrocity.
Whoopi Goldberg was angry when Alyssa pointed out that Trump went to the funeral of Officer Diller.
Yes.
On Long Island, and Joe Biden went to a podcast. Look at Whoopi Goldberg's reaction.
Choose what you like there, but for Republicans, it was good imagery.
Really?
One day later, yes.
And I'm asking that because I was so offended, because you know who showed up, and he was, whether he was asked or not. This is a man who didn't care what happened to the officers on January 6th.
She promotes Joe Biden and Kamala Harris every day on that show. Trump wasn't supportive enough of the cops who were, yes, in danger on J6. How does that explain their behavior on a daily basis?
Even people who don't like Trump were left speechless. This wasn't a debate anymore. It was a complete disaster. Bill and Megan didn't even need to say much after that. The damage was already done. The exaggeration was so out of control, it crumbled under its own weight. You could practically hear producers backstage banging their heads against the control board. And then Megyn Kelly stepped in and the tone completely shifted. While Sunny was cranking up the drama, throwing around historical comparisons like darts in a dark room, Megan didn't raise her voice or roll her eyes. She just calmly responded, addressing each point with facts and clarity. No theatrics, no shouting, just pure precision. And it worked like a surgical strike.
Last week you called white Republican women cockroach.
Actually, I didn't. And
You said they're acting like cockroaches.
I used in a similar rhetoric. Let me answer that.
Okay,
I used
so
to
here's what I'm going to ask you all to do. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to tone it down a bit because I can't hear anything.
Let
No
me
one can hear
respond.
what's being
But she
saying.
just said I called white women
why
roaches.
people
All right, we're
because
going to
I
go
did.
to break. We're going to break. Can't take it.
Exposed Sunny's entire argument style for what it was: a performance built on emotional manipulation, cherry-picked outrage, and phrases meant to shut people up instead of starting a real dialogue. With each calm, logical response, Megan peeled away Sunny's carefully constructed persona. Beneath all the righteous fire, there was a hollow shell filled with recycled indignation. And Sunny, she wasn't just flustered, she was rattled. This wasn't a shouting match she could win by sheer volume, it was a reality check. Her usual tactics, accuse, dramatize, moralize, had no effect. The more Megan stayed cool, the more Sunny lost control. Her confidence faded into visible discomfort. This wasn't a debate, it was an exorcism, with Megyn Kelly as the cold, clear-headed cleric and Sunny flailing around, trying to convince the audience that her feelings were fact. It was brutal, public, impossible to look away. Let's get into the heart of the issue: why Sunny's entire on-screen persona crumbles the moment she's challenged. Her style depends on one thing: total control of the room. She thrives in monologues. Give her uninterrupted airtime and she'll deliver a passionate, dramatic speech filled with buzzwords and finger-pointing. But the second someone interrupts her flow with a logical counterpoint, it all falls apart. Sunny doesn't debate, she dominates. Or at least she tries to. She accuses before she listens, moralizes before she understands, and throws out labels before facts. This formula works, as long as no one dares to push back. But when someone like Megyn Kelly calmly pokes holes in that balloon of self-righteousness, Sunny doesn't adapt, she implodes. What followed wasn't a small stumble, it was a complete ideological collapse. Her arguments weren't just weak, they were falling apart in real time on live TV under the weight of their contradictions. Her signature move, playing the moral high ground, backfired. When that's challenged by someone who doesn't care about applause or validation, Sunny's only defense is to yell louder. It's like watching someone realize their script doesn't work anymore, and instead of rewriting it, they just scream each line hoping it'll land. It didn't. Not this time. Then came one of the most talked about moments. Bill Maher, completely unfazed, sat back like he'd seen it all before, because he had, while Sunny unraveled, raising her voice, throwing around moral outrage like confetti at a protest. Bill didn't flinch. He didn't argue, he didn't interrupt, he didn't need to, he just let her talk. And that was the most damaging part, because her monologue fell apart all on its own. Bill sat there like a bored professor grading yet another freshman essay, titled "Why I'm Always Right." Every dramatic breath Sunny took only made her argument weaker. Every overused phrase, every cherry-picked statistic, every loud claim with no backup started sounding like white noise next to Bill's cool, seasoned silence. And then Megyn Kelly jumped back in, calm, focused, precise. She didn't need emotion. She didn't need to perform, she just exposed Sunny's whole act as a recycled loop of outrage with no substance. Every sentence peeled back another layer, showing just how hollow the performance had become. The topic had started with a serious discussion about patriotism, America's global role, and even issues like racism and national threats. But Sunny's inability to separate emotion from fact turned the whole conversation into a spiral, and Bill and Megyn didn't even have to fight. They just held up a mirror, and Sunny's meltdown did the rest. Then came the part where Sunny reached for her last card, the word woke. It was supposed to be her safe ground, her comfort zone. She tried to steer the conversation toward its original meaning, saying it came from the Black community and was about being aware of social injustice. She framed it as a noble word that had been twisted by the right, but Bill Maher wasn't buying it. He calmly responded that words evolve. And while woke may have once meant something positive, it's now being used to justify irrational behavior and cancel culture. He wasn't attacking the origin, he was challenging how it's currently being weaponized. That alone sent Sunny spiraling. She started fumbling for definitions, trying to paint Maher as out of touch or disrespectful, but it didn't land. It just sounded like more emotional noise. You could see her frustration building, not because her point was misunderstood, but because she couldn't force it to be accepted without challenge. This wasn't just a clash of definitions, it was a full-on exposure of Sunny's strategy. When she can't win with facts, she defaults to history. When that doesn't work, she leans on emotion, and when that fails, she blames the other person for not understanding the deeper meaning. But this time, it didn't work. Bill stayed calm, Megyn stayed sharp, and Sunny looked like someone losing control of a conversation she thought she owned. At this point, it was like watching two different worlds collide. Sunny was throwing everything she had, emotions, moral outrage, even dramatic body language, but none of it was landing. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly was hitting her with calm, well-structured responses. No yelling, no drama, just brutal clarity. Sunny came armed with smoke bombs, emotional outbursts, vague accusations, and buzzwords meant to shut down discussion. But Meghan showed up with guided missiles, stats, timelines, and facts. Every time Sunny tried to spin the narrative, Meghan dismantled it. It was like watching someone bring finger painting to a chess match and then getting mad that the other player knew the rules. Sunny's responses grew more erratic. Her tone got sharper. You could see her struggling to keep control. And every time she leaned into drama, Meghan calmly countered with logic. No reaction, no flinching, just precision. It was uncomfortable and impossible to turn away from. And the most shocking part, you could actually see Sunny short-circuiting in real time. Every time Meghan made a solid point, Sunny's eyes darted, her voice rose, and she retreated into a fortress of indignation. She wasn't listening, she was reacting. Like someone who can't stand being disagreed with, especially by another woman who won't play along with the performance. That's when it became clear. This wasn't a debate, it was a collapse. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more uncomfortable, Sunny made her biggest misstep yet, trying to turn the whole thing into a war on comedy. That's right, she came for the jokes. Now remember, Bill Maher is a comedian. His whole brand is poking fun at power, politics, and hypocrisy on all sides. But to Sunny, sarcasm is dangerous. Satire is a threat. She treats every punchline like it's a personal attack on her worldview. And when Maher cracked a few pointed jokes, she didn't laugh, she bristled. She recoiled like someone reading their middle school diary in public. There was one moment where the conversation shifted to Trump attending a police officer's funeral while Biden went on a podcast. Alyssa Farah pointed this out, and whoopee. Goldberg was visibly triggered, but Sunny exploded, not with facts, not with perspective, just pure outrage. She twisted the topic into another emotional rant, trying to bring January 6th back to the table like a broken record. The irony? Sunny supports Biden and Kamala Harris on the daily. She hammers Trump constantly. But when faced with uncomfortable truths like selective political optics, she throws a fit instead of facing the double standard. And when Maher pointed out that comedians joke about everyone, not just her side, it hit a nerve because deep down, Sunny doesn't want fairness. She wants silence from anyone who doesn't cheer her on. And that's not debate, that's delusion. Then came the moment Sunny tried to go head to head with Bill Maher and Megyn Kelly on intellect. It was a total train wreck. She started flinging historical references like darts in a blackout, hoping one would hit the bullseye. But instead of making her look informed, it made her look desperate. She threw out half-baked legal jargon like confetti, dropping random quotes and buzzwords with zero context. It was like she'd crammed for a test by reading Twitter headlines, thinking she was ready for a master class. The result? A mess. A loud, confusing, frantic mess. If this were a courtroom, the judge would have called a recess, and the stenographer would have rage quit. Meghan didn't even have to try hard. She sat there, cool as ever, calmly unraveling Sunny's scattered points with basic logic. No need for raised voices or dramatic sighs. Her argument was clear, sharp, and deadly accurate. Sunny, meanwhile, looked like she was drowning in her own talking points. And then, the final bombshell. Sunny accused white Republican women of being cockroaches. She quickly tried to walk it back, but by then, the damage was done. Her co-hosts were practically begging to cut to commercial. You could feel the tension boiling over. The audience wasn't sure whether to cringe or look away. This wasn't an intellectual exchange. It was a public unraveling. As everything spiraled, Bill Maher just sat there, completely unbothered. It was like watching a man calmly sip his drink while the house burned down around him. Sunny's tirades were flying like wild punches, but Bill didn't flinch. He'd been through too many media battles to be rattled by another overly emotional meltdown. You could practically see the years of experience behind his eyes, while Sunny was giving what she thought was a show-stopping final argument, the kind she expected to go viral for being brave. Bill was already done with the drama before.